Imagine raising 3 children you thought were yours, only to discover, through DNA, that every single one was fathered by your own brother. Now imagine you're not just a father, but the sheriff of the county. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just destroy one family, it led to a double murder. This is the true story of Sheriff Marcus Johnson. We're about to break down a case that shook a small town in Mississippi to its core. A respected black sheriff, a brother with secrets, and a DNA test that opened the gates of hell. The inconsistencies in this case will leave you speechless. Subscribe to this channel now. Let's see how this chilling true crime story ends. Marcus Johnson wasn't just a sheriff, he was the sheriff. In Dyer County, Mississippi, folks used his name like a promise. Marcus will handle it. Marcus don't play. Tall, broad, with a presence that commanded silence, Marcus was more than a badge. For black families who often saw law enforcement as the enemy, Marcus was proof that one of their own could wear the uniform differently. He was married to Denise, his high school sweetheart, and together they had 3 kids. Jamal, 14, Aaliyah, 12, and little Marcus Jr., just 9. On Sundays, the Johnsons filled the front pew at New Hope Baptist. Everyone looked and thought, that's what stability looks like. But perfection is fragile, and the crack in Marcus's life came from something so small. You wouldn't believe it, a science project. Jamal came home with a DNA kit for biology, a fun assignment, a simple cheek swab to learn about inheritance. Marcus chuckled as he swabbed his cheek at the dinner table. Denise teased him, "Sheriff Johnson, always so serious. It's just homework." Days later, Jamal showed Marcus the results, but something stopped him cold. The chart didn't link Jamal to him as father. Marcus laughed it off. These things mess up all the time. But the doubt lingered, so he ordered kits for the other 2 kids, quietly, secretly. When the results came back, Marcus sat in his office with a glass of whiskey. His hands shook as he opened the envelopes. None of them were his. Not Jamal. Not Aaliyah. Not Marcus Jr. His chest tightened. He couldn't breathe. In that moment, the sheriff who stood so tall felt smaller than he'd ever been. Instead, he carried it alone. By day, he was still the sheriff, giving speeches, shaking hands. By night, he was a man in torment, staring at his children's faces, wondering how much of himself they carried, if any at all. He started noticing patterns. The way Denise smiled at her phone. The way her eyes darted when his brother Daryl came around. Daryl was always around, fixing the car, helping with groceries, coaching Jamal in football. Marcus replayed memories in his head, over and over. A Thanksgiving hug that lingered too long. A shared look between Denise and Daryl when they thought no one was watching. The suspicion ate at him, until he couldn't ignore it anymore. Marcus went official. He ordered certified lab tests, no cheap kits, sealed court-ready DNA profiles. Weeks later, an envelope arrived at the sheriff's office. Marcus locked the door, pulled the blinds, and opened it. The results were devastating. All 3 children matched Daryl, not him. Marcus's knees buckled. He dropped into his chair, the papers trembling in his hands. The sheriff who carried other people's secrets could barely carry his own. Outwardly, Marcus didn't change. He still went to church, still kissed Denise goodnight, still waved to neighbors. But inside, he was boiling. Whiskey became his comfort, silence his shield. He began tailing Daryl like he would a suspect, watching where he went, writing down times, recording license plates, and what he uncovered shook him even more. Daryl wasn't just betraying Marcus at home. He was betraying him everywhere. In another county, Daryl was under investigation for fraud, theft, even assault. Marcus realized he'd covered for his brother for years. A DUI swept under the rug, a bar fight ignored, all in the name of family loyalty. Now that loyalty looked like a curse. Marcus wasn't just betrayed as a husband, he was betrayed as a sheriff. Marcus finally confronted Denise. Neighbors said they heard the screaming through the walls, Doors slamming, glass breaking. Denise sobbed as she admitted everything. The affair, the lies, the children. Marcus's voice broke. How long? All of them, Marcus. From the beginning. But then she whispered something else. Something even stranger. I wasn't the only one he fooled. Marcus demanded answers. Denise shook her head, silent, terrified. 2 nights later, the house erupted in gunfire. At 12:43 a.m., 911 lit up with calls. Shots fired at the Johnson home. Responding officers entered to find a nightmare. Denise lay on the floor, 2 bullets in her chest. Lifeless. Daryl's body was nearby, a single gunshot wound to the head. But Marcus? He was gone. The sheriff of Dyer County had vanished. Investigators searched Marcus's office. On the log sheet, they found something chilling. Marcus had signed out a firearm from the evidence locker, hours before the murders. But when forensics ran the ballistics, it didn't match the bullets that killed Denise and Daryl. The gun Marcus signed out wasn't the murder weapon. So who pulled the trigger? 3 days later, Marcus's patrol car was found abandoned in the woods. The engine was cold, the keys still in the ignition, and in the driver's seat, a blood-stained sheriff's badge. The town exploded with theories. Did Marcus kill them both in a rage? Was he framed? Or was someone else pulling strings all along? The truth would only get darker. And when the next revelation hit, it would turn this case upside down. The sheriff's car sat abandoned in the woods. No footprints, no gun, no Marcus. Just his badge, soaked in blood. Everyone thought it was his blood. Everyone thought it was proof he'd killed Denise and Daryl, then disappeared. But the lab proved them wrong. That blood belonged to Denise. The killer wanted investigators to believe Marcus snapped, but this wasn't just sloppy evidence, it was staged. Someone was framing him. Within 48 hours, the FBI stepped in, because Marcus wasn't just a sheriff. He'd worked joint task forces, cases tied to cartels, trafficking, dirty money. If he was alive, he was dangerous. If he was dead, someone powerful wanted him gone. Agent Donnelly took the lead. Cold, methodical. His first move? Rip apart Marcus's life piece by piece. And that's when the dam broke. Investigators cracked Daryl's phone. What they found was a nightmare. Hidden apps, secret accounts, messages with names tied to the cartel. Daryl wasn't just sleeping with Denise. He was dealing, laundering, selling information. And suddenly, Denise's cryptic words in her journal made sense. I wasn't the only one he fooled. 4 days after the murders, the sheriff's tip line rang. 5 words, distorted voice. Check the river, by the bridge. Deputies rushed there, and what they pulled from the water turned everything upside down. A duffel bag. Inside, $150,000 in cash, 2 burner phones, and a sheriff's department pistol. But not Marcus's. It belonged to his chief deputy. The town went up in flames. Had Marcus and Daryl been running a side operation? Was the whole sheriff's department compromised? At church, whispers turned to shouting. At school, the Johnson kids were bullied. And through it all, Marcus was still gone. Then came the footage. A gas station camera 30 miles away. 2:17 a.m., just hours after the murders. Marcus's patrol car. But Marcus wasn't driving. The man behind the wheel wore a hood, face hidden, and in the passenger seat, a child. Small frame, curly hair, terrified. It was Marcus Jr. The case changed overnight. If Marcus Jr. was alive, this wasn't just murder. It was a kidnapping, a message. But why take one child and leave the others? The answer came from Denise herself. Investigators found her locked diary hidden under a floorboard. In it, years of secrets. She wrote about Daryl's control, his threats, how he promised to take the kids if she ever exposed him. But one entry froze everyone cold. Marcus doesn't know. Daryl's in deeper than drugs. He's connected to someone inside the department. If they find out, we're all dead. That single line flipped the case. This wasn't just betrayal. This was conspiracy. Someone inside the sheriff's office was working with Daryl, feeding him intel, protecting him. And the second Marcus discovered it, his family became collateral damage. But the biggest question? Where was Marcus now? 2 weeks later, hunters stumbled on a cabin in the woods, burned to ash. Inside, bone fragments. Human. The DNA test was rushed. It wasn't Marcus Jr. It wasn't Marcus. It was a woman, and who she was would only drag this case even deeper. The remains pulled from that burned cabin were identified within 48 hours. Not a stranger, not a drifter. It was Deputy Carla Ramirez, one of Marcus's closest allies, a woman who had served under him for 10 years, and the one deputy he trusted enough to confide in. Her death changed everything, because the cabin wasn't just a crime scene, it was a warning. Whoever killed her wanted Marcus to know. Anyone who helped him would burn. But here's the twist. Inside Carla's car, parked a mile from the woods, investigators found a hidden folder, handwritten notes, dates, times, numbers, and at the top of the page, one word underlined 3 times. Brother. For the first time, agents stopped asking, did Marcus kill his wife? And started asking, did Daryl ever really die that night? The autopsy of Daryl's body had been rushed. Closed casket, quick burial. But when the FBI ordered an exhumation, they uncovered an impossible detail. The dental records didn't match. The body in Daryl's grave wasn't Daryl at all. The town went from whispers to chaos. If Daryl was still alive, then everything, the affair, the cartel ties, the staged evidence, was part of a larger plan. And suddenly, the possibility that Marcus was a fugitive shifted to the terrifying truth. Marcus might be the last surviving witness. But the question hung heavy. Where was Marcus? And where was his son? 3 weeks later, an encrypted email landed in the FBI inbox. Subject line, "He's not who you think." Inside, a single video file. It showed Marcus, alive, but not the man everyone remembered. He was handcuffed to a chair, face bruised, staring into the camera. Behind him, a masked figure whispered 2 words, "Family business." Then the screen went black. The agents froze. Family business? It wasn't just a threat. It was a message. Daryl wasn't gone. He was in control. The video of Marcus chained to a chair spread like wildfire through the FBI task force. But what they didn't tell the public was the second video file that came with it. Unmarked, encrypted. And when agents cracked it open, their stomachs dropped. Because on that tape was Marcus's teenage son, alive, terrified. And behind him, Daryl's voice. "You want him back?" he whispered. "Come find me. But remember, blood always wins." The truth hit like a hammer. This wasn't just revenge. This was legacy. Daryl wasn't hiding. He was recruiting. Federal agents scoured every lead, burned cabins, dead deputies, fake graves. But Daryl stayed a ghost. Until one night, a grainy surveillance camera caught him, downtown Atlanta, walking straight into a motel. Marcus's son at his side, not bound, not gagged, walking like he wanted to be there. That footage shattered what little faith the town had left. Was the boy a hostage? Or had Daryl convinced him that Marcus was the real monster? Inside the motel, the FBI raid team found traces of blood on the carpet, a a broken handcuff, and one word spray-painted across the wall: Father. For Marcus, the nightmare was complete. Because Daryl wasn't just taking his freedom, he wasn't just taking his son, he was taking his identity. And then came the final twist. The DNA test that started it all. The one that proved Marcus's children were actually Daryl's. It had been manipulated. The lab tech confessed under oath he'd been bribed. The samples swapped, the results forged. By the time the FBI traced the money trail, it was too late. Daryl had vanished. So had the boy. And Marcus, rescued but broken, sat in an interrogation room, whispering the same words over and over. He's still out there, and he's coming back for the others. Suspenseful outro. In the end, 2 coffins were buried in that small Georgia town. One for the deputy, one for the truth. Because the Johnson case wasn't just about murder. It was about a family curse written in blood. And with Daryl still alive, no one was safe. Not Marcus, not his children, not even the town itself.